Josh,
Ready,
you did
Tom?
redemption, right? All right.
Okay.
I would like to call this meeting to order, the Town Commission Workshop, October 26th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. Let's all stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Town Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Mayfield,
Here.
Vice Mayor Campo. Let the record reflect that Vice Mayor Campo is not present. Commissioner Fender,
Here.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Tompak.
Here.
All right, thank you. I do not see any public comment up here. Town Clerk, is there any that I have missed? Okay. Seeing no public comment, we will move on to discussion, which is item A, the comprehensive plan amendment, future land use and housing infrastructure element. And this is going to be presented by Bonnie Landry, who's been hard at work.
Evening all. For the record, my name is Bonnie Landry. I'm a certified planner contracted to update your comprehensive plan. There are a lot of slides, but I will try to get through them quickly. I want it to be thorough. And what I would like, if you have any comments related to specific policies, wait until the end of the presentation so I can switch to that document and go to the direct policy. Okay. And I don't know. Am I doing it? Maybe the battery's dead? No? Okay. Try it again. As a reminder, comprehensive plan is prescribed by state law 163.3177. As of July 1st, which was after we started this process, there was a new requirement for the property rights element, and that will be included, and it was added to the scope so that we would be in compliance with state law. And basically, a comp plan is a long-term plan that provides predictable standards for the use of your land. Okay. What am I doing wrong? Oh, okay. So here are the workshop goals. I'm going to talk to you about our approach. I'm going to follow up some items quickly of things that came up at the last meeting related to the data. I'm going to present to you the goals, objectives, and policies for 4 of the elements, which are future land use, transportation, infrastructure, and housing. Then there'll be a comment period for the commissioners and a comment period for the public. But as you know, this is just a workshop. You will not be voting on this. So let's begin first with the updates from the October workshop. I wanted to acknowledge that the mayor and the chief spent many hours going through the data, and we met to make some corrections. We also got input from the commissioners and from the public. And basically, it makes your plan better because you're intimately involved with your town, and I'm the consultant. So you start with basically the data from other sources, and then you have to truth check that data because it may not be current or it may not be correct. So we appreciate that. Okay, so as I mentioned, I met with the town manager and the police chief, and we updated the data, and I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of one of the updates. The property appraiser gives us the data for vacant land. That data that they provided us was 55 acres. And right away, the police chief and the manager said that's not right. There's a lot of things under construction or that lots that have been cleared. And basically, the way the property appraiser updates their vacant land is they wait until there's a certificate of occupancy. So that's why there was a wide thing of error. And then they update it the beginning of that year after the certificate of occupancy. So it could be as old as 2 years. So we truth check that. You will have a version 2 of the data, and that will be presented in December with all the corrections. And the next slide is going to show one of the questions that came up is, it says that we have 6 boat RV people living in their RVs. Well, that's not correct. You know that that's not correct. But the data that we got from the U.S. Census has a margin of error plus or minus 10, which tells you it was wrong. It was still within their margin of error. So we acknowledge that, and that is how that happened. We get it directly from the United States Census. We updated your transportation and mobility data to remove those roads that were not within your boundary. We corrected a typo in the housing data. I'm going to go through these quickly unless you have a question. One of the questions that came up is, what are the private facilities that provide recreation and open space? There's Snug Harbor, Marriott, and the Ocean Club. It's up to the commission if you want to take those off. We can do that since they are private clubs, but that is where that acreage originated from the University of Florida. Let's see, we updated a correction of who managed the Jensen Beach Park. We updated to add Indian Riverside Park, which is a regional park, so that's a very important park to us. We updated the town limits map, so it's clearer where the parcel lines are. I think it looks better than the original rendition. And going back to that, if I can do that, yeah. One of the questions that came up is, why is the boundary, around the water? Well, it was the way your property description was in your original charter, but it is an advantage to the town because the same situation exists in the city of Stuart. You'll see that their boundary extends into the St. Lucie River. And I don't know if you were here back when the mooring field was established in the city. That gave them some, ability to control what went off in their waterway. Even though they don't own it, their boundary extends there, so they were able to coordinate, I think, a better mooring field than what they had before that was put together way back when. I wanted to also acknowledge that the sample size was small. We acknowledge that. There was only 14 attendees. There was one paper response that was submitted. So to accommodate that concern, we do have additional, Michelle printed these out. If someone tonight wants to fill one of these out, it'll be recorded. And Michelle also agreed to put it in a future newsletter so that we can have more data. And once we get all of it together, we will recognize how many people were present and how many people did the paper surveys. But that will all be reflected, and we'll update the data with the new people who are involved. This just tells you we've got through the first workshop, which was the data. Right now we're doing 4 elements. We have consolidated the 2 meetings in November to 1. So you will have 6 elements that we're going to cover in November. So that might be a lengthy meeting, but it was needed because Thanksgiving and everything like that. I also want to acknowledge that this is the first bite of the apple. Please don't think that this is the way it's going to be when it goes to the state. We're going to update the data. We're going to go through each of the policies and take input from yourselves and from the public. We could remove or add policies. We could reword policies. But that will all happen between now and December 14th. So you have plenty of time to give me your input on that. And what I was going to show you is kind of the process of how we go through this. The first matrix that we put together will be by goal, objective, and policy. We will have the source of the comment, whether it be public, commissioner, or staff. We'll say what the comment was. Then staff will make a recommendation of how to respond to that comment. The results will be recorded, and the date that the change or no change was made will be recorded. And that matrix will be in that December meeting. So everybody knows what changed, all the changes that you have along the way. But we retain the original version so that you know what changed, okay? And in between and prior to December, you're going to have a legal review, because I can write as well as possible, but the attorneys have to make sure it's legally defensible. And so they may change a shall to a may, or a will to a shall. Words matter in the legal, the legal areas. So we will have I suspect, changes based on the legal defensibility of the comp plan because it is a legal document. So that will be done between now and December. That final version at that workshop will be the LPA workshop, and then we'll have the transmittal hearing in January. The transmittal hearing is the version, probably version 2 or 3, and that's the one that goes to the state for their review. Then we have more people review it. The list of agencies include the Regional Planning Council, South Florida Water Management District, Martin County Growth Management, Department of Transportation, DEP, Department of State, Department of Education, and Martin County School District. So this thing is reviewed by a lot of people, and that's why we keep that matrix so that you know the source of the comment, and you can decide how to go from there. Then, once the state has gotten all the comments from the agencies, because those comments go from the agency to the state, they don't come to me, they will prepare what's called an ORC report, which is objections, recommendations, and comments. An objection is something that must be addressed. If they say we are missing a policy and we have to address it, we have to address it in a way that complies with state law. So you can't get away, you have to answer the objections. Recommendations is their recommendation of how to address that objection, their concern. And then you also have what's called comments or technical assistance, and those are completely optional. You can say noted and not make a change, and you'll be fine. So as I mentioned, we do have a matrix for the ORC report, and we put that on a separate spreadsheet. So you know those are the final changes that you make before you adopt your comprehensive plan. I just wanted to recognize that Frank Veldhuis, who is my mapper, has taken y'all into the technology age. Your original map that was in your comp plan was basically hand-drawn, and now it's digital. So, and it wasn't even a part of the scope, but he did do the zoning map. You don't have to have that for the comp plan at this moment, but I think it's good so that you can see what's on the ground today and how it's zoned. So let's begin with future land use. This is the main event. This is the one that has the most discussions in most municipalities is how are you going to lay out your land? And it kind of incorporates the other elements. So it's a very important element. So basically, one of the big changes that I acknowledged in the plan between the time that we did our data and now is there really aren't 55 acres available for development. You're basically built out essentially between what is planned and what is in process. So we do have to acknowledge that because there's a lot of things we can't accommodate because of our built-out status. One of the things we acknowledge is that you are a small town, and from what I'm hearing, you want to stay a small town. So we acknowledge that. We created, because you're small, there's only 4 land use categories, and we define them there. And then we did talk to Michelle, and we separate public that is owned by the town and public that is owned by others meaning Martin County or the state, like Department of Transportation owns some right-of-way. In order to prevent sprawl from occurring, we have very strict criteria for annexations that you want to look at. You have to be adjacent. You have to hook up to water and sewer. There are requirements. Now, obviously, if you don't want to be that tough on annexations, that's open for suggestion, but we have a criteria, and I think that's important. And I did talk to the state, and they said that is how you address that in a town that's pretty much built out. We encourage accessory dwelling units, and when you calculate the density, those accessory dwelling units are calculated at a half unit instead of a full unit. And the requirements for accessory dwelling units is one house can have one dwelling unit, and that's it. And the accessory dwelling has to be 50% smaller than the original structure. We also ensure that you have services and facilities for your residents, and we discourage the use of septic tanks. And you'll probably see this one again in infrastructure. Here is the town limits, as we mentioned, with the submerged land, and that gives you the ability to control what's out there in the waterways. And again, this is your hand-drawn original future land use, so it's very simple compared to what it is now. And we have separated commercial. Commercial has 2 zonings, but you really only need 1 land use. Your specifics are in your zoning, not in your future land use. So we have commercial, we have public lands for other municipalities and agencies, and then we have residential. We did try to denote what each of those that the town owns are, and if you don't like the way it's described, we can change that. It's very easy to do. Because is stormwater a passive park, or is it stormwater? How do you want to call that? But I tried to not make so many categories that it's confusing. So that's open. And this is the other thing. The acreage has changed a little bit. That road that's pointed at showed up as residential land, and it's a road. We pulled it up. It's paved. So we took that out of the calculation. And the one up at the top is an example of how we really need to look at how we're defining, like the island that's on A1A out there says public, but the one that I'm pointing to there is a stormwater for the bridge, but we didn't call it anything. So I don't know really how you would prefer it to be identified, but you really can't build on that stormwater treatment from FDOT. It has to be there for your bridge. So we can fine tune those sort of things. Here is your acreage, your residential, commercial. As I said, you only have 2% commercial, and the public land is almost evenly divided between other agencies and the town. Transportation and mobility, the purpose is just to have a balanced transportation system, and that provides mobility for all. We're not just talking about cars. We've got people that walk, bike, etc. And it's very important that you have adequate funding for your infrastructure and you have to maintain it to be safe. So we acknowledge that there is limited right-of-way, as we discussed at the last meeting, for alternative modes, like how are you going to put in a sidewalk? You just look for opportunities when someone wants to assist you and provide some right-of-way for those other facilities. But one way some municipalities address, at least for bicyclists, is they have what's called a share row. And I'm trying to, there's a couple of examples in the city of Stewart where on the travel lane for the car is a picture of a bicyclist to remind the motorist that the bicyclist is sharing this road with you. Please look out for bicycles. And I think it's a nice safety measure. You can get a grant for that pavement paint, and that's something you would do coordinating through MPO, your relationship with the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So as I mentioned, one of the things that we talked about is we do want to look for connectivity, but we don't want to divide neighborhoods. So if extending the road is going to cut a neighborhood in half, we're not going to do that at the expense of a neighborhood to provide that roadway connection. As I mentioned, you want to look at your coordination with MPO for grants, because there's a 3-year grant cycle for alternative modes, and then there's a 5-year cycle for their transportation improvement program, and then you can also talk about being in their long-term plan. But the first step in getting funding through MPO is to get in a plan. So you want to be in their long-term plan, and then you want to try to be in their funding cycles. And it seems like 3 years is a long time, but it goes by quick. You just have to get on the list. We also need to look at our capital improvements plan to make sure there's proper funding for all modes of transportation. And as we change roadways, there's a policy to make sure the public's involved, because you don't want to just change your traffic patterns and not involve the people who live here. Infrastructure, that's basically your drinking water, your sewer, your trash collection, your drainage, and your aquifer recharge. So the themes that we have there is we need to continue our collaboration with Martin County Utilities, because we would like to provide water, sewer, and solid waste services in an efficient manner and try to serve all. We want to seek grant funding to encourage these connections to the central sanitary sewer system, which would protect the health of your waterways. And we also want to prepare the town for risk of flooding by putting together some drainage projects to prevent the flooding that you have here. I did update one if you go into your list of policies, I referenced the wrong state law, so I just wanted to put that in there for the record that we updated that infrastructure policy to the right Florida statute. I picked that up just today. So the last one is the housing element. We want to provide safe, sanitary, and affordable housing for all residents. We want to redevelop existing neighborhoods, remove any substandard housing, relocation assistance, and critical housing assistance programs. In your plan, you retain your established small-town identity and quality housing. We want to provide policies that support environmental sustainability. Your plan recognizes that build-out is here, and you don't really have, you have very limited opportunities when it comes to providing affordable housing within the town boundary. So what we did to address that state mandated requirement is that we would collaborate with our county partner to provide affordable housing within the county, since you can't provide it here. And we also, it is affordable housing with the accessory dwelling units, because if you're an elderly person and you're living on the same property with your children, it's going to be more affordable to your elder population, which we addressed in the plan. So a recap on the transmittal process. Your next workshop is November 16th. That will cover the other elements in the plan. But this is the very first bite of the apple. Between now and then, you'll have a month to look at all the policies and make comments and be on the matrix for changes leading up to the workshop. Then at the workshop, we could have additional changes, which is why we'll have 4 versions, because you may have people that come to the December workshop and have more changes. We'll keep track of that, and then the version that goes to transmittal will be the final draft before it goes to the state. The state has a period of time that they are allowed to review it and get the comments from the other agencies, and then your adoption hearing should be around April. And that concludes my presentation. There are surveys in the back, but also if you want to take a picture, that is my email. If you want to email me your comments, we would encourage those, and those will show up on that matrix that I described before. And at your next meeting, you will have that matrix of changes or recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. The elements you gave us, those are the separate, or town manager also, we got the 4 elements, transportation, future land use. Those are for us to read in the meantime to be ready for the next workshop, correct?
Mark them up. If you have any questions now, I'm happy to answer them. But the most efficient way is for you to either give the comment to me or Michelle or both of us. Okay. I'll have to see the state mandated law to find out if it can be changed.
Okay.
And if it can't be, we'll try to adjust it to best accommodate your needs. But knowing that much of this is prescribed by state law.
Okay. So it was kind of like the first step was to gather all the information, and this is to apply it.
Yes.
Okay.
This is correlating to your data. And like I said, I've already updated the future land use to show that we don't really have 55 acres.
Right.
So that part of the data is being updated, and that version of the data will be at that December, which is just a workshop.
Okay.
So then you'll have time between the workshop and the hearing, the transmittal hearing, to change as well.
Okay. We have a question. Yes, town manager?
I just wanted to emphasize before we move on, and Bonnie can help add to it if we need to. As we remember back to the last presentation, we were speaking about parks. And we have limitations of parks that we can add within the town, so part of the transmittal will include the parks that are within a certain distance that are Martin County parks, but we are claiming them as available to our residents. And so I wanted to make sure that we emphasize that that's the same thing that will happen with the affordable housing piece. So I know that there's some concerns out in the public that perhaps this is saying that we're mandating, or that the state is going to mandate affordable housing within the town of Sewalls Point. And that's just not the case. What we're transmitting to them is that we are built out.
Right.
What is here is here. And anything, if, from an affordable housing standpoint, is relative within our town. And so, of course, we have a spectrum of priced homes. And then beyond that, Bonnie's going to identify within Martin County, lower areas as well that are within driving range, if you will, of the town and available. So I just wanted to
That's
kind of
good.
put a little
Yeah.
little mark on that one.
That's a good point,
No,
thank you.
and I think that is very acceptable. I talked to the state, you can't, they're not going to make you tear everything down
Yeah.
and start over. That would be silly.
That would be great.
So to get your parks, you're going to look at your county parks, your regional
Mm-hmm.
parks. To get your affordable housing, they have an affordable housing committee in the county, which is very nearby. So that is how you respond to those mandates.
Okay, excellent.
'Cause you have to address it, but they don't say it has to be within your boundaries.
Okay, all right, thank you. Commissioner Funder?
Hey, thanks for your hard work on this, Bonnie. It looks like it's really coming together, and
Thank you.
clearly you've done a lot of organizational work here.
Thank you.
So over the last week or two, I've gotten a few calls, so I thought I'd try to clarify some questions that also resonate with me. I don't really understand the process. Clearly, you have it in hand, so I appreciate that. But I'm familiar with the old document, right? The Selectric typewritten 38-year-old document that is
And
vastly in need of an improvement, which you were doing, so thank you. What I don't know is really the detailed content of it and how the spirit of that document might change to what we're doing. And so is there some kind of process we're going to follow that we, especially related to like densities or there's probably several concepts in there that we should probably be clear on, so it's clear to everybody that when we go through this process, that we're not changing the character of the town through the process of rewriting the comp plan. So just educate me on your thought process around that. And
we did look at that. The interesting thing about density is the team spent a lot of time on that to make sure that we didn't take away property rights, which you can't do. But we had to look at what was possible and what was the current character of the land. Because in your original document, I'm not even going to try to find it.
Yeah.
Your future land use map just has average density. It doesn't have a future land use density claimed, because maybe back in the 80s you didn't have to have a density that you called density. And I believe it was 2.47 units per acre, something like that. We made it 2.5, which is just enough to provide one house, and if an accessory dwelling unit is half a house, that is just at 2.5 units per acre in 27,500 square foot lot. And that's to address your smaller lots, because as you look at your land development code, depending on when your lot was built, it's requiring more and more land. But I think the smallest was 27.5. So we based it on that, and Heather is the math whiz, and she did the mathematical equation
Sure.
to make sure that no one would have a lot that couldn't have one house and one accessory dwelling unit. So we did spend because that is one of the biggest contentious things about a comp plan, is how much can we put on a parcel.
okay.
And the biggest change, which will affect your LDR, is you will only get one accessory dwelling unit. You will not have more than one. Each house gets an accessory dwelling unit. It has to be 50% of the original house. That's the way it's written today. But as I said, if y'all want to change it, that's just a starting point. But the original document, it's just that so much has changed. That's the state told us to start over. But I do understand your comment. So what we will do between now and the December workshop is Heather and I will go through the original document and try to just kind of make a summary of what was there and how is it addressed in the new one. It won't be a strike through and
helpful.
underline,
Yeah,
but I
that
think
sounds
that will
good.
be helpful with people to know, you are an established town, and maybe the 1980 plan was what people still want today, but it still has to be state
Yeah.
approved. But I can do that for you. That
Yeah.
would be, because.
Well, I certainly don't know what I don't know, so that'd be helpful if you
And
found some way to
it's
map it.
really not that long of a document, because there weren't as many requirements back then. So it won't be that difficult to do. I'm happy to do that.
May I continue?
Yeah.
So I heard you say 2.5 units per acre, so
Yes.
that's good information for me. I assume that's about the same as it was. Carrying along that same thought path, is there anything in the comp plan that addresses, even the old one or the new one, use of that property? So if there's 2.5 units per acre on any given property, is there a limit to the number of structures going to be there, and is there a limit to the usage of those structures that are there? So say, for instance, I wanted to build a property that had 5 additional grandmother cottages on them.
You can't do that.
Okay. All right.
Now, and I'm saying, I want to make sure this is clear. This is the first bite of the apple. The way it's written today, version 1, is 1 house and 1 accessory dwelling unit per lot.
We have some pretty big pretty big properties, right, that would certainly sustain more than that.
Not with the density, because we did the calculation, the density of 2.5.
I'm thinking
Only-
specifically of a couple of lots that are maybe 10 acres in size. Dr. Namie's
Oh,
property.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. But each house can have 1 accessory dwelling unit. So if you're talking about 10 acres, they'd have to subdivide it to do that.
Okay.
But I do want to make clear to the public and to the commission that a comp plan is a big picture document. Your individual, really hard-nosed, this is your setback and this is how tall it can be, that is typically in your land development regulations, not in your comp plan.
Okay.
So if people see this and say, well, it's very broad, that's the intent. And then when you want to get into the particulars, that's when you open up your LDR if there's changes that need to be made. One of which would be, right now, as a special exception, you can have more than 1 accessory dwelling unit. That would have to be, if the comp plan's approved like it is today, there are changes and updates that'll have to come into your LDR because I don't know how much that has been updated over the years.
Okay.
So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think we're getting to it. Yeah, I appreciate
Okay.
that.
So
Good
we
info.
will do that exercise between now and December, and I think that will make people more comfortable that we are still keeping the spirit of your small town character, but you'll see that throughout the document. We say the very first goal is the town of Sewalls Point is a small town, and it will always be a small town. It is a very strong statement. If you don't want it to stay that way, but I started strong, we can always work our way back.
Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
So, since you brought that up, is there anything about a theme? Is a thematic vision part of a comp plan? Because I came from Delray Beach, and their whole
you're
thing
right.
was a village by the sea, and that's what they love to say over and over again. Is that part of the comp plan, or is it?
Well, we called it Legacy 2045, and we gave it a name. I didn't really put that in this document because it's just the words, but I think the theme that we have, even though it may not be, it may be in the introduction of the future land use element, I can pull that up, but you're a small town charm,
Right.
and you want to stay that way. You don't want to be a big city because you're a small town. That's the basic.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's some
But if
pithy
you,
little
Branding.
branding. Yeah.
well, let me just pull that up really quick.
You can absolutely decide on a brand and carry it through your comp plan, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just a thought. I don't know what it would be, but I'm just,
So the vision that's in there right now, which can be changed, is the town of Sewalls Point will strive to maintain its small town character. The town will continue to provide effective and efficient services designed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of its residents. But you can take it from there, or you can change it. It's your document.
what page is that?
That is on page 2 of the future land use element. And we put the
the
vision
element.
there
It's-
because
oh, in the
that's kind
bigger
of the
picture,
center
okay.
place. It's a lot to read.
I got it, okay.
It's a lot to read.
Can I go to Commissioner Kurzman?
Oh, okay.
No, I thought you were going to.
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Commissioner Kurzman.
How you doing?
Good.
I was looking at the plan, and one of the things I looked at I keep seeing the word sidewalks come up, and I'm looking with the new plan that we have for the roads. If the sidewalk goes up on the west side of Sewalls Point Road, it'd be very intrusive. You're already taking away part of the property once we do the project for the water retention. And what's happening now, you're taking part of the property, then after that comes a swale, then after that's a sidewalk, you're going to be up on somebody's front porch. I think that's just way too intrusive. The only place you could put a sidewalk would be definitely on the east side. If you ever considered it, I'm against it altogether, the sidewalks. This isn't a town that was meant, we have a beautiful road called River Road. That's for walking. Sewalls Point Road is not
Not,
a true walking road, and it should never be considered one. It's a big mistake, and you're taking away the rights of the property owners that live on Sewalls Point Road. They're being penalized. They've been living there for many years. Most of the people, as you go up and down that road, have been here forever. Now you're going to tell them, we're taking this, taking that, and taking that. You're taking their property, and I'm 100% set against that.
agree.
And
And if the policies are written in such a way that it says that we're going to mandate that they give us the right-of-way, that's not, the way it was written was as it becomes available, meaning you have the neighbors come together, which sounds like they want, but if they were to come together and say, hey, we would like a sidewalk, we're going to give you an easement, that's one thing, but we would never, and I think it's against the law, having a lawyer answer that, we can't really take your land and say we're going to make it a sidewalk.
no, but here's the
You can, but we're not going to do that.
I definitely
We would not do
understand.
that.
Yeah,
Let's
no,
put
no,
it that way.
we've been down that road before. We're
You
not
would
going there
pay for
again.
it. No, and
Yeah,
we
it's-
won't go down that road, and if
Yeah.
it is written in such a way that it sounds like that's how it's written, then we will look at those policies, because the intent was as opportunities become available, because in many places I put, we have limited right-of-way. We recognize that. We would like to provide these facilities because the law says we do have to provide those facilities, but if we don't have the right-of-way, we can't do it. And we wouldn't, I don't see the commission going in and taking land.
Well, here's the problem, and I'll use Dr. Mady, who's right over here. We don't have a right to go, but everybody walks across this property. So if Mr. Jones says yes, and they got to cross Mr. Smith's property to get to Mr. Johnson's property, that's what's going to happen. Now they're going to have two sidewalks in the middle, you're going to have grass, but they're going to make it a path. And that's another part that I don't like. If it's not consecutive, I don't want any more sidewalks to nowhere, it's a waste of taxpayer money. I think that should just be eliminated for the future. I think we need to protect the residents from future commissions that might feel otherwise. I think we need to put something in there to really protect, and I'm just so uncomfortable with the word sidewalks in there.
Okay, so one of the things we could do is when we talk about sidewalks, we recognize that we have limited right-of-way. And we put a policy in there that says unless it's connected, we're not going to put in missing pieces. A lot of municipalities will say, let's have a developer put it in while we have the right-of-way. And then you've got a sidewalk here, and then like you said, you're stepping on somebody's property. If we could either say there won't be any on Sewalls Point Road, but it's up to the commission and how you direct me. Or we could say, we will not do a sidewalk unless it's connected in a connected system, meaning we would have to have the system in place,
And everybody would have to agree to put a sidewalk on their property.
which probably won't happen.
Exactly.
No, so we can,
It's never going to happen.
well, is that what you want?
Yeah.
Is that way we address
Yeah.
the needs? Because it might be very strong to say we will never have a sidewalk on Sewalls Point Road. That might not go fly with the state. But if we said we will put together a sidewalk that is connected and we won't put in pieces, but again, we'll look at what all the commissioners think about sidewalks, but I hear your concern and we will try to address it.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, I do want to give a shout out to Chief Tina, because I had gone over this document, or the first part, and I did my best, but there was definitely stuff I missed, and I was going to send you one today, a little typo thing I saw or a mistake, and she's like, oh, I already talked to her and I took care of it. So not in the typical job description, but she has the most knowledge in this room, probably, of all things Sewalls Point. So I apprate that, Chief Tina. Thank you.
And I will acknowledge it again, because when she gave us the markups, I'm like, oh my goodness. But guess what? She's probably been here the longest.
Yeah.
And I'm impressed that she knows every single road in this town. And she knows the names, because apparently the county calls your roads something different than what you call your roads. And she goes, no, this is the name of the road. I said, yes, ma'am. We will make it to because I guess the county, they put in a grid system, but
Yeah.
that's not what you call them. So it's your document. It is going to be your document. So
Excellent.
I just want to make sure everybody knows this is the first stab at it. You can give me any comments you'd like along
Okay, and I have one question that popped up.
Sure.
Commissioner Tompak.
Actually, it's not a question. I wanted to, thank you for your hard work. It took me a little while to figure out how the DIAs became GOPs, And by the way, could we get rid of the GOPS? That's just
Yes, we will.
That's a horrible thing.
It's goals, objectives, and policies, and I have to say that planners probably have one of the most acronyms that, and we try not to do it, and it is annoying, and I apologize. We want to shortcut everything, and the GOPs and DIAs, but it's data, and it's policies, basically.
I was just going to ask. I know you had said at the beginning of your presentation about public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
That's okay. So, you're welcome. I hadn't seen any public comment earlier, but since this is part of the presentation, right? And any public who wants to comment on the comprehensive plan, the time is now. And seeing none, then I guess we're done with that. Thank you, Bonnie, very much. And Heather, thank you.
And thank you all for your help. And the mayor did have a lot of comments, so thank you for, she read the
Oh,
whole,
everyone
I know
remembers.
she read the whole thing.
Everyone remembers last meeting. That was a lot of. All right, thank you.
It was helpful.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to discussion item 3B. All right, I put this on there. Communication update, centralized sewer for South Sewalls Point. Again, communication is important to all residents. And I'm getting calls, emails about sewer, what's happening, what's the status. So I wanted to, I wrote my memo, and I had some ideas. I don't know if my fellow commissioners read the memo. I'm sure you don't want me to read it again. But I was hoping some ideas I had for communication, and that's why I'm here to talk about it with you guys. Maybe a coffee with the mayor at the beginning of November, where the topic is centralized sewer, where you can have more back and forth with town staff there to help. Also a newsletter and an email update about the status where we are. And then I put down some points of information that I thought were relevant and things that residents would like to know. So do I have any comments, input? Do I get the okay, or?
Seems great.
Seems great.
Something to be very productive.
Martin County. And I think we've talked with Stuart a little bit, and I know that, some things are in, some things are out. And I'm not sure, that you have enough information to really explain to residents what our current plan is. I mean, I think we can certainly talk about the fact that we have, $500,000 in ARP money to spend on planning. We also have some, an appropriations request in for however much that is. And I'm not sure, what the intent of how we're going to use that money. If it's going to be strictly for planning, if it's going to be strictly for engineering, some permitting, coming up with a detailed plan. We had the cost details in the, capital improvement plan at one time. And I think we've swapped around some thoughts of what we want to do, and we're even perhaps looking at some type of a hybrid system that I was talking with town manager about earlier today. So I think it's a great idea for you to talk about it, but I want to make sure that you're armed. We don't want you going in without being armed.
Well, yeah, and that was one of the reasons to bring it up here, is more really just what has happened and what we have so far. No projections for, the cost gets, as to your point, there's no real cost yet. We don't know. It's just an effort to, let the residents know, because even though we do this, there's a surprise, people are busy with their lives, and they'll pop in and be like, what's the status and what's going on? So it's an effort to just get these points and maybe some basics, the coffee with the mayor, that is more back and forth. I could have other subjects on there too, and take your guidance as to what not to talk about, Commissioner Fender.
It's a good point. I mean, since you brought it up, to me, you don't have a plan yet for this, right? I mean, so I'm not sure what you would talk about, but if you want to start building the straw man for a plan, I think there's Didn't we get grant money to do so? I'm just telling you, having gone through the process once, there was a significant amount of effort that went into to get to the stage where there was anything to talk about. So, I mean, we brought in people from the utility, we brought in various competitive utilities to give us their take on it. And all of those things ultimately congealed into a set of PowerPoint slides that said, if it should happen, this is what it might look like. So I don't know. I think the thing to talk about is the steps of the timeline, because the questions I'm getting are, is there a plan? And I'm like, not yet, but we're talking about it. But, so,
And I understand that. That's why I said I would emphasize that there is no plan, and I would not give out exact costs,
Yeah.
because that's where it gets dicey. It is more just, the referendum thing, I thought was a good point, because
well,
in terms of just what is, not to do it or not to do it, just what can you do?
that's not, I'm sorry, I didn't mean
Okay.
to comment on the referendum part. That's not what my
Okay.
issue is, that this topic is, what's the word I'm looking for? Divisive to the level of vaxxer versus anti-vaxxer, right? There are people who are pro-septic or anti-sewer, and the vocality of those comments are skewing the design, the initiative. So I think you got to step way back from any of the rhetoric and just come up with a straw man that says, this is a plan that we're considering.
What, I'm sorry, what, you're saying, and come up with a?
A plan, a straw man, a design.
I never heard that term before.
A house of cards.
Okay.
So,
I thought it was something, I'm sorry.
It's a rendering,
Okay, I got it, sorry. I was like,
sketch.
what is he talking about? Okay,
I'm just saying that right now, you don't want to get too far ahead of the course. You need a plan for the plan, and you said it earlier, right?
yes, my efforts were, is if we have a plan, people are like, how did you come up with a plan without communicating? This
Right.
is all just extra stuff, so I don't want to.
So maybe that's what you should be working on, is a plan for the plan, right?
But the plan will always be indefinite until it's definite, and then we don't want to put out an indefinite.
What does
plan,
your
so-
sign say on the screen?
Stop talking and start doing it. Yeah. So I am open, I would love to do like a newsletter or include some information, some of the points.
My concern is just be careful not to press the wrong hot buttons when you do so, because as soon as you put it into words, then all of a sudden it is a plan, and. So,
Yes, I don't want to put out.
I don't want
there
to
is-
crush the initiative before the initiative gets.
No,
out.
I want to put it out there. I think it's important to put it out there. People know it's there,
There's
we
plenty
talk
of people that
Yeah.
also would like you to do that.
Yeah.
And I think the other part, by the way, things don't congeal into a plan. That's gravy, Frank, yes.
Yeah, you've left your
Elements
gravy
get-
out on the table
elements
long
get put
enough?
together and they become a plan.
I'm sorry about that.
Anyway, what I was getting at, I think you can certainly, talk to folks about what hasn't happened, because we're reading things
There you
about,
go.
they're spending millions of dollars, already spent millions of dollars planning this, and of course, that hasn't happened. And maybe you can give them kind of a roadmap of how we're going to get there, I think.
Okay, I totally agree. I do not want to put any more out there that is not accurate and definite. Commissioner Kurzman.
Yes, I've spoke to quite a few people on this hot subject on both sides. And the people that do not want the sewers, they would be open to the aerobic system. And it's something where the water that's discharged is as clean as your pool water, which isn't going to harm the river, it's not going to harm anything. And it avoids having to pay continuous fees to the government to go in and pay for sewer. And I think if we offered either the aerobic system or sewer, I think you'd have about 99% of the people would be very happy. And this is something we need to go up the ladder statewide to see if they could be accredited to, if they do get the aerobic system, they would not be penalized any time in the future for having something that does not pollute. And that, I think, would make a happy town in general, if there's some way we could look further into this. So the people that want the sewer can get the sewer. Nobody's going to stop them. I support it. The people that want to go ahead and could keep something like a septic system, it's called an aerobic system, and there's several different types available. There's one that's actually made out of cast concrete that's not going to float away. I'm 100% on board on both ends. I think that people should have the right to choose, and I if you have an open-minded individual within the state and you explain how the aerobic system, I'd be happy to spend, well, I can't spend time with you, but I can have somebody explain to you how the aerobic system works, give you even more information. It doesn't take up a lot of space. And I think everybody could be in harmony on this, and nobody's going to fight you or anybody up here. And that's only once a septic fails that we'd go to one of these two systems, because if a septic fails, you would have to get a new septic anyhow, which is going to cost a lot of money, or B, you'd go into the sewer. I feel very strongly on that, and it's something that I think most people lack education on.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Commissioner Fender?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea, but I think what you'll find once, because we've been down this path once before, is it's the financial model that you put at jeopardy. As soon as you say, we're going to have two systems, okay, that's fine. Choice is great. What's the financial model around two systems, and what does it take to offer two systems? It's more than just offering the choice, it's actually being able to deliver, so that's part, and by the way, that's part of the plan, and you should include it in the plan. But I think you'll run into a financial reality at some point when you do that.
Yeah,
I
and
think
that-
this is something that would have to be get by Gail Harrell. I tried walking in there, and I pretty much got thrown out of the office. And she's 100% sore, and I was the devil coming in. And
I don't think that's the case.
Oh,
I think she's
absolutely.
been down this path as well.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting idea. And we don't provide, as Sewalls' point, we don't provide public waste. So it would be something that would, come from a different, Martin County, whoever provided, City of Stuart, is that something that could even occur? So it would be at a level that is probably not our level that would have to, like you said, it has to be at a, if you were trying to do a hybrid system. I'm just speculating.
Maybe Martin County could sign off on it, and we could talk to them and say, this is it, and we don't have to go that high. I think that would be a great thing.
Okay, town manager?
I was going to ask Joe to come to the lectern just to, I know he doesn't want to. It's okay. It's okay. We're not going to get into a big thing. So, the financing models that are out there for the incentive are around a centralized sewer system.
Okay.
And so when we talk about aerators, or we talk about the step plan that like Vero has, those are considered separate types of product. So this product is so specialized, it's almost like a wastewater treatment in your yard. It's pretty specialized, but it's not a centralized sewer system. And so the state of Florida has created energies and financial incentives around getting the centralized sewer systems in place, especially in coastal towns. And so one of the things I just thought if I could publicly update you all on a little bit of a meeting I had yesterday, Joe and I, with Martin County, if you're open to hearing about it. I had a chance to update the mayor, and I had a chance to update Commissioner Tompek when we had our meeting today. So to get you all on the same page, it was a good meeting. We had a chance to discuss the option of working with the city of Stuart. Is that an option? And unfortunately, that is not an option. There are service boundaries that have been in place and that are recognized by the state. And in order for those boundaries to change, it would take a lot of steps, including Martin County agreeing to exchange some lands with the city of Stuart. So that was just a non-starter for them. So we went right back into discussions about how can we continue the momentum for the good of everyone. And I expressed the concerns that continue with our discussions, which are, how can we get the right product for our location and potentially avoid the use of the word mandate, because we know that that is an emotional fire starter. And so that's really where our conversations were yesterday, and I thought it went very well. I also went into conversations that said, hey, I recognize that you all put in money towards the back end of this program, and there's a lot of contributions that they offer from the county because it is their system. But we were asking for also some upfront matching. And they were receptive to that as well. So they're going back and taking a look at that. But what we did agree to, we have common ground on, is that the first step is this part of the plan. And so as you guys know, I use the word plan lightly here, right? So
Yeah.
not that we have a plan established, but we have organized in some type of timeline order I don't know what other word I could use for, somebody look up synonym for plan for me. Yeah, so this approach that we have looked at in the past really says what we know, which is the preliminary design report has to be first. So we have to go into the process of getting, whether it's under our continuing services contract with Cap Tech Engineering or having to go out to bid, we need a preliminary design report, which would include the survey information, topography information, and that report will come back and offer the commission the information you're looking for, which is methodologies that would be appropriate based on the systems. And then from that, then we have a more realistic idea of what the costs are going to be. Now, they did offer some information on costs, and they offered to go back and look a little further in and give us a letter of intent, if you will, for the future. So I am feeling very optimistic about the fact that we are currently can say that we have a partner in Martin County that says, let's find the right match for South Sewalls Point. And the other potential win is that they, based on the information they have now, they agree that there might be an opportunity for us to move from 29th ranked based on the need to a higher rank. And we'll know more of those details after they take a look. But right now, with their current program, the Connect to Protect, they are set to give $2,500 per ERC to cut that cost back, which comes out to $1.6 million, $1,630,000. And that is really realized at the back end of the deal. And so, our conversation is we have $500,000 this year with our ARPA money and potentially some state appropriations money, but that, will cover a portion of the preliminary design report. Can you assist us with that? And so that's what they're going back now. And I don't want to speak for them any further than that because they do have to check with their elected board. But I think we're further along than we've ever been from a collaborative teamwork expectation. And they recognize that we would ideally like to have the grinder system just for the sake of not having to mandate it. But what we need to realize is, this is like when you go shopping for glasses. You go in and they usually have it categorized by good, better, best. And so the good is the grinder system. The better is the gravity system. And the best is the vacuum system. And so what's interesting is that when you take a look at our spectrum of residents that live in the town, not everybody would gravitate towards those same areas. Some will gravitate towards, give me good. Good is good enough. Mm-hmm. And some say, why would I take good if I can have the best? So we're going to say that preliminary design plan is going to do what we're not equipped to do, which is pick that best choice. Let's let the professionals take a look at what's out there and then bring that information back to you to make that right decision.
Thank you, Town Manager. So I can just say that what you said, the last time I have my memo about City of Stuart is out. That's what you just said.
Yeah, that is a non-starter. I did communicate with Mr. Dias, City Manager Dias, and he understood. I thanked him for his time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Fender?
Yeah. So 2 thoughts. One that I was originally going to make, but really just to follow up on your comments, which were great. So based on all that stuff you just said, is that information finding its way into a set of PowerPoint slides, or?
Yes, I have just a printout of one slide that we went through yesterday, and I asked him to update it to make it specific to the town of Sewalls Point, and I asked him to make sure he throws some extra money in there. We were kind of kidding, but we weren't kidding.
So that's using the term plan lightly, right?
I mean, I think that where we're at is the next step for our commission here, and Joe, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but it will be to gain direction from you to say, we want the preliminary design report, and that is part of the steps that were identified in the blueprint.
All right.
And that still is within what you have budgeted, and it's absolutely appropriate, and it will also help with future grants, because they asked those questions, and you have Chloe in the audience as well, so she can verify that they ask, what about your your VA, your assessment, but then also, what about your preliminary plan? How much is it going to cost in surveys? So that's, that's really the next step.
So just I said, what I was originally going to say is based on, you said a good, better, best, and you listed them out, but I was just going to provide the history lesson for those who don't remember, and some of you weren't on the dais, and maybe it was even before you
It was
were
before
town
me.
manager. You brought up the step plan from Vero. We had Vero come here and present a whole presentation on how his step system worked. I think, and Commissioner Kurzman can remind me, I think we had two representatives from the company that sells the devices you talked about come and actually bring the device and give us a presentation. And I think that was incredibly expensive, but pretty cool. It was awesome technology. But you listed 3. Those 2 can be added, and I don't know where they fall in the pantheon of good, better, best, but it's all about choice.
Well,
Ultimately, they've got to ultimately end up in a financial model, which is where I think you're going. That's
Correct, sir. And also, they most likely, based on the information that we have now, would not fall under the opportunity for us to use the monies, the centralized sewer monies, because they are not centralized sewer. They are,
that's a comment,
right,
right?
they fall under the column of,
Considered and understood. I mean,
Right.
that's what I'm saying, is they're not ignored. We want to do this, but here's how it works, right?
right. So under the, the terminology, I guess, is, I want to make sure
And this was just, to communicate where we are at this point. And all this stuff is like real-time happening. This was just yesterday,
It was just,
correct?
exactly,
Yeah.
and so,
I'm talking about putting out stuff that's not even necessarily what happened yesterday. It's
Great,
just
yeah.
because I've had people asking about things mentioned, so
Sure.
I think it's a great way to just get those basics out there, and that's kind of where I was going. I'm
Well, we
sure
need a
that-
plan,
Yeah, but I think it was important to get the updates
an
and
outline, whatever.
it's happening. Commissioner Kurzman?
Yeah, I have a question really for the finance director. I was curious, how much do we pay per year to Martin County in, the Sewalls Point residents combined pay to Martin County in property taxes? Would you happen to know that number?
no, we wouldn't know that offhand. We would have to go back and, that's not something we track.
What do we pay total just to Sewalls Point?
You bring in,
2 million?
we bring in 2 million in revenue, if you're asking.
Okay, so you got to more than double us. We're paying over $4 million a year to Martin County, and we can't even get a fraction through what we've paid through the years back. And I think that's disgusting, to be honest with you. If something like this is going to be done, I don't think we're asking for the world. The tax money we have, I've seen where it's gone. It's gone toward a $7 million golf course. They've done it to expand the airport. They've done it when the air show got canceled. They reimbursed the vendors there. This is something we're all worried about the environment, and that's where I have the issues. I feel they really should be stepping up to the plate on this. We haven't asked them for anything on a level. We've never asked the county for help. We keep paying and putting into the pot, but we're not getting anything back. And we're really getting the short end of the stick on this. We're paying a ton of money on county taxes, but yet to come back and give us a small portion of what we put in over the years. We've never asked, the county, I don't think, has paid us much of anything for any of our projects. And, they've paid us a little bit here, a little bit there, but we've never gotten a lot. And I feel at this point, it's our turn. And, for them to step up to the plate and actually maybe pay for this project outright, I don't think we'd be asking a lot. I really don't. It's like just getting a rebate on our tax for a year to pay for this. I'm sorry, I just feel different on this. I feel we got the short end of the stick.
Gotcha. Commissioner Tompeck, and then we'll get to town manager.
Well, I admire what you're hoping for here, Dave, but that's not a realistic possibility. I think, where we're headed and coming up with call it a pre-plan or whatever, we want to see, exactly what their level of participation is going to be. We've got some ideas here that the town manager found out talking with Martin County yesterday. And I've got some ideas about, what a normal utility will put in to gain 600 customers for life. So, I mean, if they're in a position where they're going to pick up the capital improvement charges, they're going to pick up the engineering, whatever they want to pick up. If that's reasonable, then we need to go ahead and, proceed with looking at a more detailed plan. But thinking that the county is going to do the whole project, not going anywhere.
Well, you got to start somewhere. I mean, come back with a counteroffer, but I'm just saying, we really haven't gotten anything from the county through the years, minimal. We're getting back pennies on a dollar historically. So I don't think, like I say, we're asking, I understand the county has expenses to go, but, you know, to get something back when other towns have, Indian Town's gotten a lot out of them, and they've paid for these. I don't even want to get into it, but you just have to open up the paper. There's a water park that looks wonderful, but this is something that has been paid for with taxpayer dollars through the years that's really served very little purpose for the majority of residents that live in this county.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Town manager, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yep, that is the philosophical conversation in every county and city, is the counties, collect and then provide a certain service, and then the cities collect and they provide an accelerated service. I mean, that is why cities, exist. But we kind of had that banter yesterday, and I would say probably in our 3 meetings before. And so I'm really optimistic. I know that I said that earlier, but I have to say to you, I am optimistic that they do want to contribute because they see and recognize the importance here. And the difference with the county versus, like, say, us, we have one general fund, and the county does not contribute a significant amount. If they do, it's just subsidizing to the utilities. That's a separate enterprise fund. And so the way they fund the septic to sewer conversions, they explained to us, is through their FP&L franchise fees, which are much more than ours, right? So it's the same 6% that they collect, but we collect such a smaller amount. So we could dedicate some fees there, but the reason they can't give us money from that is because they're using the fees that came from the unincorporated part of the county from those franchise fees, and that's that explanation.
Okay.
But they are looking to see what legally they can pull from in order to get this started for public health.
Well,
the
they also got a truckload of ARP money,
They
which
did,
can be used for this as well, that they could contribute.
and you're absolutely right, sir, and I told them you said that. And so, they have met with Mayor Mayfield in the past, they have met with Mayor Fender in the past, and, Commissioner Fender when you were mayor, and you all, as a commission, as a body, said that it would be okay for Commissioner Tompeck to also have some conversations. And so yesterday, when we spoke with them, I did introduce that idea, and they were absolutely open to meeting with Commissioner Tompeck. And, there's a little professional courtesy there since he's the director of facilities, and they'll have a different level kind of conversation. So they do want to schedule that, and I think it's going to be productive. So. Your finance director tried to get that number for you, and so she roughly came up with $4,508,294.
Okay.
But again, that doesn't go to the utilities, but does go to Martin County. And again, I just want to end the conversation with, I'm optimistic that when we come back to you again, there'll be some additional funding. They know that we can't fund this without the grants. I mean, we still will need to go back. The estimates that they're showing are $7 to $8 million in grants. I still stand by what we talked about in the last 2 years, which is $10 million in grants. That's what we need to pursue. And if we do this over the next, like, say, 2 to 4 years, we can absolutely capture that with what's out there now. But we can't capture it if we don't have the plan in place for the preliminary plan to show what would work. So I do recommend to somebody to be a champion on that, and maybe, perhaps it's after Mr. Tompeck meets with them, but we do need to move forward with making a motion, and not today, but at some meeting, or asking for it to be put onto a discussion that says, let's get the plan done. The plan is one of the least expensive parts. We have the money through our ARP. It's sitting there. Let's get it done, and then that, how long will that take, Joe? About a year? And then you'll have that information.
Well, I don't think it's going to take any up to a year, but it's sometimes shorter than that. And again, we're talking about using somebody that's is involved with both the vacuum system, grinders, and will give us the various options. I think the most important thing we got to yesterday is we could, we only had one choice, a vacuum system, which was a problem for us because of the fact that it was somewhat mandatory to tie in. And now we are back, now we have three choices. because we have some gravity mains up down there that are they're not in use right now. We have the potential for grinders, and we have the potential for vacuum. And when you put that together, we hopefully will see the savings of what's in the ground already. So that was an option we explored with them. That's not to say that that's the route we're going to take, but the fact of the matter is that we have 3 different options with some infrastructure in the ground is a savings. And that's what, when you break this all down, it's a matter of what it's going to cost the resident, okay? And we can say we're going to get grants, and there's probably a good chance we're going to get them. And that's the thing that gets me most nervous when you talk 2 to 4 years. Folks, the money's there now. We cannot keep waiting, and we cannot keep going backwards. And you can keep talking about all these other systems out there, and I'm just telling you, they all have a capital cost. The capital cost of that system that you're talking about was $14,000 to $15,000. The capital cost without grants is the same number in going to Martin County or whatever. So,
Yes.
and you all have maintenance. If you think you're going to put one of those systems in and not maintain it, that is not going to happen. The typical price to maintain those systems per month is what you're going to spend going to the county or the city or whoever you go to maintain the system. It's the same price. So, I'm not so sure you want to go that route. We can go and get the vendors here again. They can tell you they'll put the system in for $10,000, whatever they're going to tell you. But you still have to maintain them. And that's been the problem with any of these other type of systems, is nobody's maintaining them yet. And there's a reason why Gail Harrell isn't pushing it. There's a reason why Governor DeSantis isn't pushing them. They'd love to have this free enterprise make all sorts of money and pay taxes, but they're not shown that they're the ones that are reliable. And so I'm just telling you these few issues. It doesn't matter that we don't go investigate them, but we've investigated them, folks. We got to stop going backwards. We got to go forward on this issue, because the money's there now, and they were very friendly with us, and they're willing to help us find some money to get things started. And I think, we've been down the route many times. I can go through an education program for another 3 years like we did before, but you got a road that's down there that we're going to start paving, right? We got all these other grants online, and once I start paving it, I'm not going to go tear that road up to put a sewer main in it. That would be ridiculous. That would be cost prohibitive for you folks.
Thanks, Joe.
Joe, one
Thank
quick
you, Joe. No,
question.
hold on,
What's,
hold on,
Joe,
so
what's
hold on.
the price difference between a gravity system and a grinder system?
Well, you have to realize the gravity system that we have down there is in the ground. And there are certain gravity systems down there that we have in the ground that we will not use because they're of a pipe that's inferior, okay? So the fact of the matter is, what we're talking about is using a gravity system that's already in place. The only thing that's missing is its gravity lines going to a low point, and that low point usually have a lift station that lifts that sewage up and pumps it to their plant. Guess what we're missing? That pump system and that force main. That's what's missing.
Okay.
So that's what we're saying, we'll use that system that's out there. And again, we still have to go through the numbers. I'm not trying to
Right.
tell you that that's the route we're going to go, but the fact that we went in thinking they were only going to do one thing, a vacuum system. And there was a lot of pushback on the vacuum system, as far as the fact that you have to hook up, which, not that you have to hook up, but you're going to pay some fee if they put that expense out there in the ground. So the fact of the matter is we now at least have 3 options we didn't have the other day. So it's
Okay.
a benefit when you got choice. There's no doubt about it.
So these are all good conversations, and to the point the town manager made, to put it on, if we want to move it forward, put it on the agenda and be talking about it. This item was about the communications, and I think it's important to move forward with the talks that the town manager talked about. I think this is really exciting, and I approve of Commissioner Tom Peck being a part of those discussions. So what I'm really looking for is just, okay, let's move. You can do the communication on what has happened. Thank you. And then town manager, did you want to add?
The funding part, I might have forgotten what I was going to say, but when you move through into a project in general, quite often, we don't know the final number of what, it depends on how much grants we get, right? But what you need to know is that Martin County and Martin County Utilities has a policy that the homeowners cannot exceed $12,000 for their burden. And so their goal is to get grants to bring that burden down as low as possible. That's in their policy. This commission has said we want it to be as close to what North
Right.
Sewalls Point paid as possible, so they understand that too. And what they explained to us yesterday is, we have this added benefit that the unincorporated county didn't have, and that is, we, as a municipality, will be continuously applying for grants. Every time we apply for grants and get awarded grants, that's going to go towards the pay down and make it less and less of a burden to the residents. For instance, Rocky Point, which is an unincorporated part of Martin County, was just awarded in this last month $10 million for their plan. So these are the types of numbers that they're giving out now.
Okay.
But again, we have to get our pre-plan design.
Okay, I appreciate that information. I am excited to work with Martin County and hopeful too, and I will do these communications with the town staff and keep it to just what's already occurred. All right, that sounds good. I see no more comments, so any closing comments from staff and commissioners? We are having another meeting in 12 minutes, so
Break time.
you do not have to say it now, or you can say it at the next one. Commissioner Tompick.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to prolong the agony, but several months ago, we had looked at an ordinance on boathouses. And I think at the time, we kind of kicked the can down the road and didn't make a decision on it, because I think at the time, there wasn't anybody who was asking to build a boathouse. And I'm wondering if, I've gotten a couple of calls on that, and I'm wondering if it's time to bring that ordinance back and really look at it and see what we need to do with it. And I would request that we would do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Town manager is noting it.
Yes, ma'am. Your building official, who's in the other room right now, already started with a PowerPoint presentation to show you examples of items that you could approve from a code and design standpoint, so we can do that.
Great.
When would you like that? Would you like it ASAP, or do you want to put it into your January workshop? Because you've got packed meetings these next two meetings.
Two meetings are combined
We could do it at the LPA meeting.
in December.
Well, are we holding up anything right now, as far as you know, in terms of people that have been asking, or?
Yes, sir. We have some that we were going to pursue punitive measures because they've already built it. But if we know we're going to look at the ordinance, then we will not move in that direction. And yes, we have people that have asked for it.
Okay, I think if we've got some people that are on the hook, either way, they've already violated the ordinance or they're planning on violating it, we should bring it up as quickly as we can, yeah.
November 14th, we have basically two meetings like we did today. First, the land planning, LPA, the local planning, and then we could put it on that one, but it seems appropriate, and then you have your regular meeting, and we'll try and keep that regular meeting as short as possible.
That'd be great, thank you.
Light, thank you.
Okay. All right, seeing no more comment, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Meeting adjourned, we'll be back.